Just like with customers, we had a customer center. We also have a vendor center. You can access it from the home screen by clicking here where it says vendors. You could also go up here and click on vendors, or if you want to go to vendors from the menu, you can do that as well. I'm going to the vendor center. This is a list of all of your vendors in alphabetical order. You can also see the balance that you owe that vendor if you've put in bills. That's the only way you're going to know a balance. And also notice there's a column where you can attach a file over here. You're currently looking at all of the active vendors. If you drop the list down, you can see that if you just want to see the ones with open balances, you can do that. You can also look at all the vendors. That would include any that you had made inactive as well. I'll just click on the active vendors. Whichever vendor you have selected here on the left, you're going to see information about that vendor over on the right. You're going to see their company name, you're going to see their billing address, phone number, fax, email, all the same information that we saw when we were looking at the customer center. You've got a map to their location and directions here. And over on the right, you can see that if you wanted to run a couple of reports for this vendor, like a quick report or an open balance report, you can do that as well. Notice the option to order 1099 forms from Intuit if you want to, but you don't have to order them from Intuit. You can buy them anywhere you like, or if you want to order checks from Intuit, you can do that right here. Here's where you would go up and attach a file. This would be any file that you want related to this vendor. It could be a bill that you've made a copy of. And if you want to edit the information for that vendor, you would choose this option right here. Down here at the bottom, you'll notice under the Transactions tab, you're looking at all the transactions related to this vendor. The types of transactions you're going to see here are going to be bills you've entered, purchase orders if you're using the purchase order system, any what we call bill payment checks. You're going to see all of those listed here. You will have options to sort or filter this list. You can see that right now you're filtering it by all of the transactions, but you can also filter it by a different date range if you'd like. The next tab over has all of your contacts related to this vendor. You have any to-dos related to this vendor under the to-dos tab. And then any notes related to this vendor, you'd be able to enter those here. Also, if you've sent any emails through QuickBooks to these vendors, then you would see them listed here as well. What I want to do now is take you in and show you how to actually enter a new vendor. What you're going to do is right up here at the top where it says New Vendor, you're going to click and you're going to enter a new vendor. The first thing you want to do is put in the name of the vendor. We're going to say this vendor's name is Smith Painting, and you'll see there's a place to put in the open balance. This field is set up so that you can put any money you owe the vendor as of your start date. You can put that number in here as a starting balance. I suggest that you don't put anything here and you actually put in the bills that you still owe as of your start date. That way you can go back and look at them at any time. The first thing you'll notice at the bottom here is we're under the address info, and this is where we're going to put in the address, the phone number, things like that. This is Smith Painting. Now I know we have Smith Painting already up here, but remember that if you're going to do mail merges with Microsoft Word, it's going to pull from this field. So you want to make sure you've got information there. If you wanted to put in a name for a particular person there, you can do that. We'll say this is Randy Smith. If you wanted to put his job title in there, you could do that. We'll say he's the owner. And then you can see there are fields for the phone numbers, the faxes, emails, website, and all of these fields can be changed if you want them to represent something different. Down at the bottom where it says Billed From, this is going to be the billing address that is set up for this vendor. I've got Smith Painting in here. I might put in attention, Randy Smith, and then go ahead and put in whatever Randy's address is. The next tab over to the left is the Payment Settings tab. The first thing that it asks you is, do you have an account number with this vendor? If you don't have one, just leave that blank. What are the payment terms for this vendor? We're going to say net 30 in this case. Notice there's a field also so that you can put in the name that the vendor wants printed on their checks. This would be the payable to field. If the vendor gives you a credit limit, you can put that in here, and also a billing rate level. This means that if you happen to do certain things for this vendor at a particular rate and other things for a different rate, you can set those up. The next tab I want to point out is the tax setting tab, and this one's really important. If you have 1099 contractors, these are not employees. These are people that you call in to do special projects. They need to actually send you a bill and then you pay that bill. That's the correct way to handle that. If you have 1099 vendors, you want to have their tax ID in here and also check the box that they're eligible for 1099. If you do not do this, when it's time to print 1099s, they will not get a 1099. The next tab on the left is account settings. If you know that every time you create a check or some type of entry for this vendor, there is a certain account for the chart of accounts you want this to go to, then you can pick from the list. You can assign up to 3 of these. And that way you don't have to choose those accounts every time you're working on a transaction. And the last tab is additional info. If you want to categorize your vendors, you can do that. You can see there are several different types here. I'll just pick subcontractors. And also there are custom fields over on the right. If you want to create additional custom fields, come down to define fields, type in whatever you want that field label or name to be, and then check off whether you want that field available for customers, vendors, and/or employees. I'm going to click OK, and we should see Smith Painting in our list. You can see it right down here. It's in alphabetical order. Once we create our first transaction for Smith Painting, then you will actually see a balance, and then you'll see those transactions show up over here under the Transactions tab. While we're in this window, I do want to mention a couple things. Notice if you go up here where it says New Transactions, there are several different options here. You can enter bills, pay bills, create purchase orders. You can see the list. But chances are you're not going to be on this screen when you want to create those transactions. You can also come up here and you can print your vendor list. You can also export this list to Excel, or you can import a list of vendors you have from Excel already. You can also do mail merges with Microsoft Word. Those are some of the options you're going to be able to do when you're working with vendors. Now that we know how to set up vendors, let's go ahead and move over into the second video and talk about how to enter bills in QuickBooks using these vendor names.